Should you be a realtor if you're going to be a real estate investor? This is a question I get often. It's usually from the perspective of, if I want to be a real estate investor, what are the benefits to being an agent? It's not, if I'm an investor, will I be a better realtor? That's the mistake I think most people make. Over 90% of real estate agents never own one rental property. So if you're a real estate agent, investing might not make you a better agent. So to flip the script there. But there are people who say, I want to be an investor and reach financial freedom with buy and hold rentals. And if I'm a real estate agent, then I have access to the MLS. Then I get to save money on my commissions. So here is some of the benefits that you can find listed out for getting your real estate license, presented by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, who needs more realtors to be an association. They will say, you get to save on your commission. It's going to go to you. Okay, if that's true, great. They get to say you have access to the MLS. Okay, if that's true, that's great. You get to learn as you earn. Right? As an investor, as I was learning my market, I wasn't making any money. But if I was a real estate agent and I was doing transactions, I might have made some money while I was learning my market. Okay, so I'm breaking these down in a minute, but I just want to list them out first. You get to network with other agents. You get referral fees. And NAR lists this out as a benefit. You get continuing education as a real estate professional in order to maintain your license. They miss the part where they require ongoing education in order to maintain your license. So let's take those 6 things and talk, is this a benefit or not? First, you get to save on your commission. Okay, so if you're going to save on your commission, what are the fees and costs to get set up into a position where you get to save on your commission? First, the biggest cost to me is the time commitment. On average, if you do it the way you're supposed to, around 120 hours of training. Yes, there are people who take the shorter online at your own pace test, training online, and then maybe make it through the test. There's the cost of the test, the cost of the licensure, the cost of the app on your phone to have access to the key fobs that people have now as they're getting rid of lockboxes, the brokerage fees. You get your license, you don't just have access to the MLS, you have to pay to have access to the MLS. And generally to do that, you have to be hired by a broker. So you need to be hired by a broker. Do you think a broker is just going to hire you so you can do your own transactions? So there's all of these costs of time and money, licensure, education, ongoing renewals that you need to do to be in place to get the benefit of getting your own commissions. How many transactions are you going to do is going to determine whether this is a benefit or not. As the lazy investor, my goal was 1 property every other year. Some people can do 3 or 4 their first year. If you're going to do, I would say 3 or 4 transactions per year, yeah, you're probably going to benefit from your commission. But if you're a buy and hold investor, do you make enough money from your W-2 to have the inconsistent income of a real estate agent when you're starting up as a profession there, to be able to buy 3 or 4 properties every year to benefit from your commission? Don't make the biggest mistake of quitting your W-2, becoming a realtor so you can become an investor, because now you have changed career fields, inconsistent income, probably a low salary, bad debt to income ratio. You're going to make it almost impossible to get into real estate. But if you have a W-2 that generates enough money for you to put it to work, here's my question. If you are looking at saving your commission, would you work with a real estate agent who only ever had 1 customer? Is a brokerage going to allow a real estate agent continuing access to their MLS if they only ever have 1 customer? So to benefit from commissions, I think it needs to be more than just your own. So now you are creating a job and a side hustle. If your goal is to create a job and a side hustle, and it's not just to benefit from your commissions, maybe being a real estate agent has a benefit. Do you want another job that you are going to take seriously enough to not be that agent that only has one customer? You're going to have access to the MLS. And I've said this in many videos. And I have some agent friends who kind of disagree with me, but they're not on my receiving end of this. At all points in time since I started investing in real estate, I have at least 3 realtors, 3 agents with MLS auto searches set up. I have a cookie cutter copy and paste email. Here's my footprint. This in the beginning was the price point I was looking at. Once you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, that kind of goes away with how much money you have for the down payment being the only thing that limits what you can buy. Here's the 3 things I don't want. That was my email sent off. In a decade, only one time has my agents ever, within a 24-hour period, sent me the same deal from 2 different sources. The way agents search on the MLS, the way their auto searches send me deals, because I have the same agent sometimes send me a deal that has 45 days on market, but it's the first time I saw it in my auto search. And then I'll see other listings that came out yesterday. I want at least 3 agents with auto searches. So if I was an agent and I had full and complete access to my MLS that I paid the MLS access fee for, I paid the brokerage fee to have access to their point of entry to the MLS. I was spending all this money. I spent the 120 hours to get my license. I had the cost of the course. I had the cost of the testing. I had the ongoing education every year to renew my license. I'd still have 3 agents other than myself have auto searches set up. Let's take on the you get to learn as you earn. 90% of realtors never own one rental property, and you think you're going to learn how to do properties and real estate investing, working with other agents? Primarily, most realtors work with home buyers because there's a 4-tier system for who will pay what for real estate. The highest paid person, the person who will pay the most for a house, is the home buyer because they're buying based on payment. They don't care about the yield. They've probably never calculated it or even thought of it as a rental. Then you have investors who we buy based on yield. What can I get as a cash on cash return? Then you have flippers looking at what kind of value add can I do? Then you have wholesalers looking at what is the wedge that I can get the difference between seller and buyer. So most agents target the person who's spending the most on real estate because they're paid on a percentage commission. Currently. Who knows what's going to happen in a year or two? So you're going to network with people who can't help you as an investor. If your goal is to grow that side hustle and become a real estate agent, sure, networking with other realtors will teach you skills, things to do, things not to do, just like any other profession. But that, as an investor, the question being, are there any benefits to the investor getting my real estate license? Haven't seen it yet. So the pros, the things that NAR listed as here are the benefits and why you should have a real estate license because we need your fees. I'm not cynical. You're cynical. The pros are almost all cons for me. Now, the cons are actual cons to me. 1, I am definitely not an entrepreneur and I don't want to grow another business. I was retiring I have a video coming out Thursday. It's okay to be lazy. I watched Joe Kuhn. It's here on YouTube. It's a great channel. You should check it out. He talks about retiring to something, not from something, right? Have a passion project, develop your, your retirement strategy. I don't have that. I'm absolutely okay with doing nothing forever and then filling my time with what comes up that I feel like doing in the moment. That's why I don't want to be a real estate licensed person. I don't want to have that access to the MLS, the continued education, the forced continued education, not the benefit of continued education. But if you don't do this, you don't get to continue your license. I don't want to have to network. I want to if I can, and if I feel like it, but not because I have to maintain my license. I don't want to know the rules and regulations that a realtor is held to. In certain areas, you can't negotiate the price with portions of the inspection report that you send to the listing agent or to the seller. And that's one of my best strategies to get the price adjusted after I'm under contract. You can't send love letters in certain areas. A letter from the buyer saying, I live in the area. I have a nice family. I'd like to raise them in your house. I want to take it over and I want to care for it. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to be held bound by rules and regulations that I don't even understand. This is why I hire a tax pro. Amortized depreciation, scheduled depreciation, bonus depreciation, cost segregation study for depreciation, all of those things. I don't know what any of those words mean. I just know that I buy real estate, I get rental income, I don't have to pay any taxes on it because Congress is full of people who own real estate who keep weirdly making laws that benefit people who own real estate. The restrictions that come with being an agent far outweigh the pros that were listed out by the National Association of Realtors that I thought were all cons. If the one time it makes sense, and he'll be joining me shortly, you are Millennial Mike, or like Millennial Mike, or like some of us, you want to be like Mike when you grow up. You reach financial freedom by buying and holding real estate. You buy rentals that create cash flow. Once you can retire from your job, so you stop getting shot at every week because he does work as a first responder. After he retires, to his time freedom to coach his kids' soccer games and to do whatever he wants. I think having a license so that he can, because he really enjoys working in real estate, work with buyers, create a kind of side hustle in retirement, not in addition to his W-2, and then move to Florida and work in real estate. Sure, the benefit to having a real estate license is his goal to work in real estate. That would limit him in reaching financial freedom. It would put barriers in his way. It would cost him money. He is doing transactions in Gary, Indiana, where the amount of money saved on 100% of the commission, let alone if it's income, you're going to pay taxes on it. Your brokerage is going to take somewhere between 20 and 50% of that commission. So the little bit that you get left on the smaller amount of the transactions that's happening in Gary, Indiana, would be outweighed by the cost of maintaining a license, getting a license, paying for the training, paying for the MLS access. If you're in a very high cost of living area, maybe the commission from a $900,000 house might offset the expenses of having your real estate license. But are you going to do enough transactions to where you're not that agent that only has one customer, that only does one deal or two deals a year? When the question comes up from one of your friends of, hey, if you're a real estate investor, are you a real estate agent? You should send them this video. Because if you are, it clearly tells me that you're looking for another job, that you aren't using real estate to reach financial freedom to be as lazy as I am, that you might not have weighed the pros and cons when the pros were cons and the cons were cons. Sounds a little ranty on my side, and I'm trying not to be that condescending person that says, condescending is when you talk down to somebody, right? Like when you explain mansplaining to somebody. If you want to grow a side hustle as a job that you're going to commit the time and energy and effort to be a professional at, and it is the goal, sure, be a real estate agent. But if your goal is financial freedom with buy and hold rentals to make work optional, it is the last thing that I would want. Top 3 last things that I would want. I'm going to go to the questions now. Thank you for joining me on my Tuesday. If you're watching this in Futureland, I think I actually kept that to short 13 minutes or so. Normally my goal is 10 minutes, but my rants go on for 30. My goal tonight is to answer all of the questions that come up. And this can only last a couple of hours. Tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have the course Zoom call. If you're in the course, we'll be on Zoom. So I will see you there. Like I said, Millennial Mike will be joining me here any minute. Alantino, howdy. This video is because of the question that you asked last week that I see is your first question here. Is it even worth it to get a real estate license for investors? I have the books, but sitting for a test doesn't sound appealing. There you go. I have my answer. And it's actually, like I said, this is the question from the end of the last live stream. I think it was on Saturday. Dividend Day. Howdy. Good to see you here. G, with the 2026 gain checking in. No Gator Zone, yes, unless you watched the most recent BiggerPockets podcast. I think it was the most recent. It was the most recent one I saw. where they were talking about making an appreciation play and it making sense to buy an alligator, which it really does. If you have a portfolio so large that you're taking a small portion of your investing and putting it in a gamble, like an appreciation play, it absolutely makes sense. But if you're in growth phase, and they point this out several times in the video, they actually say, if you're trying to grow a portfolio, this is not the strategy for you. If you have an existing portfolio and you can put some of this money at risk and not lose everything, if that deal lost everything, then it can actually be a really good strategy. Kind of like Michael Zuber putting 1% of his net worth into crypto. Now, I'm not saying crypto is a good or bad investment, but he's not taking the time to educate himself on the asset. He's just saying 1% because if I lose it, who cares? And if it turns into a good deal, great. That's how an appreciation play works. A small percentage of your overall portfolio put into a gamble. And if you're starting out and you have 1, maybe 5 rentals or less, you don't have the portfolio size to gamble on appreciation. Jason, howdy. I just sent all my financials for my first loan application. I can do more without hurting my credit, correct? If so, for how long? Also, what if I don't find a deal in that time? Sorry, I am a ball of nerves. The first time you do anything in real estate, Jason, it's terrifying. It really is. The second time, it almost feels like you could teach a course. That's how quick we get over the fear. When you make that first application, you have some things like, well, how's this going to affect my credit score, right? So it's going to give you about a 6-point impact. The lower your credit score is, the smaller the impact of a hard credit pull inquiry can be, right? Because it's a percentage base. So if your credit score is 500 or 600, it's going to have a 5 or 6 point. If you have an 8 or an 830, it can have up to a 7 or 8 point hit. You generally get, and I say generally because it depends on day of the month that you're starting, but about a 30-day window where you can have similar types of lenders do a credit check, right? And there is a difference between a credit union, a bank, a mortgage company, right? So similar, make sure that they're as similar as possible for 30 days. That generally goes away after 2 or 3 months, right? So when you have your credit pulled, then here's why I do this as the order of operations for me on lending, Jason. I will go to a larger bank, the top 3, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, because they have the most standardized criteria for lending. Whatever they approve you for, most other lenders will approve you for the same amount based on your credit score. Sometimes they have a better interest rate. Sometimes they have a better cost to buy down your interest rate, right? So that's why we're going to compete the lenders against each other. But we start with the big bank because I've had a big bank run my credit, tell me, okay, you're approved for this amount at this rate. And then 6 months later, I talked to another lender and I used that email from the bank to say, here's what I was qualified for. Nothing's changed in my situation. They'll look at interest rates to see if they've doubled like they did between 2021 and 2022. That can have an impact. And then the other lender will go, oh, well, we would approve you for the same amount, or this is our cost. All of that conversation can happen without another credit pull until you're actually under contract on a property. So you don't have to always have it pulled. And congratulations on your first offer. What I started to say was the fear you have when you start is it's going to impact my credit score. And then you have, well, I made an offer. I would really like the property at this price. I can actually get the deal that I'm looking for. It's a property in the area that I want. It has my cash on cash return. It has these aspects to help limit tenant turnover. It has all of these things that you're looking for. What if they don't take it? What if you get outbid, right? That's the first fear. Then the fear transitions into, what if they take it? Have you thought that through, Jason? Now you have to pay for an appraisal, an inspection. You have to follow through. Like the fear shifts. And so you've been through that a few times. And then you realize that it's just Tuesday. You're going to make 20 offers to get that one accepted, to get under contract, at least probably in most cases. And I see Mike has jumped in here with us. Howdy.
Up, handsome. I'm just going to call this out real quick. It does look like you've got 40 plus viewers with only 20 likes on your video. Fellas, come on. How are you going to leave Dion hanging out like that? Look at him.
So when you call people out like that, let me behind the scenes a little bit of YouTube stuff, right? Most channels have a 10% like ratio. So if we're at 42 and I have 21, That's a 50%. This is an amazing group of people. I appreciate every single like. If it's more, that's cool, but that's a lot of likes when the normal is 10%. So, Mike, are there benefits to having a real estate license while you're an investor? And I did talk about when you retire, your plan is to have a real estate license in Florida, so you have a kind of a side hustle going when you're not coaching soccer. But for now,
Yeah, so I think people misunderstand what I mean when I say that I might get a real estate license when I move to Florida. It's not because I want to make the money from being a real estate agent. I think that money would be pretty nominal compared to what I make from my investments, especially at that point. I spend a lot of time having people reach out to me and say, "Hey, who's your agent in Gary, Indiana?" Because I invest in Indiana and I've got 15 rental units there, and I send referrals all the time. And personally, I think it would be smart if I just piggybacked off of my own reputation for being an honest, hardworking person. If people want a good agent and I invest in that market and I have a license and I can help them out, then I don't have to worry about somebody else not treating them properly. But do you need a real estate license to invest in real estate? Absolutely not. In fact, I've known people who thought that they got their license and then they just let it lapse or go away because it was completely and totally useless. Especially right now, where I know Dion talks a lot about, as I was listening to him as he opened it up, he's like, yeah, I've got multiple agents with multiple searches and they're all sending me different properties. Dude, if you're getting properties right off the MLS sent to you from an agent right now, in my opinion, you're doing something wrong. Most markets right now, the cash flow is not there. Deals don't work at the current list price with the current interest rates. They just don't cash flow. You need to be sourcing your deals from off market or from agents that you're talking to that aren't doing just on market deals. So personally, yeah, like I've bought wholesalers and all cash and seller finance and owner finance for like my last 6 deals that I've done. So I highly encourage people to go that route. And guess what? Real estate agents most of the time will be an obstacle for you at that point instead of a benefit for you. Having your real estate license won't hurt you, but it's certainly a process you don't need to go through, don't need to spend the time to get.
I see Frank saying, congratulations, Jason, go for it. Jason says, thanks. I have so many questions popping up in my head. I will annoy Dion some in the members only later. I want to be real clear, Jason. We're probably having a members only Saturday morning this coming weekend, not tonight. Tonight is the course video. And then I see Josh jumped in. Josh, speaking of Josh, hopefully everybody's going to check out Josh, REI Stoners, and Cody's episodes on One Rental at a Time. Here's some red meat to feed Alcor's rhythm. Am I dumb to purchase all cash like you did on your last one? I did my last cash and want to repeat again. It depends on your situation, your goals, your timeline. And sometimes it makes sense to do cash. Are you going to do a cash out refinance? Is it to close the deal? Is it your best use of capital? I very clearly, every time I talk about my last deal being purchased with cash, I have reached financial freedom. I don't want to add a whole bunch of units. I'm not looking at the best return on my money. I just wanted to put the money. I didn't like it sitting in the bank. Right? This sucks, and I want this to suck just as much for everybody who watches this now and in Futureland. It sucks for the money to keep piling up. So I bought this place cash. It's not how I would normally do it, and I can increase my return by pulling the money out with a loan. My cash on cash return. Don't know if I'm going to. I don't think you said, am I dumb to purchase all cash like you did? No. I don't think anybody ever regrets having a paid off property. It might not be the best use of capital, right? It might not be the best return. And then how fast can you save for the next one? What is your ultimate goal? How far are you along in your investing journey? That's how I would look at that. Sometimes cash makes sense. Sometimes Mike is growing a portfolio with the goal for it to be much larger than mine. So creative financing, private lending, all of those aspects and putting it to play is great. I was raising 3 kids, running a truck driving school, didn't have the time to even think about any of that. It was just as I got the money for a down payment, if I found a property on the MLS, I would deploy the funds. It was as simple as possible. Other strategies would have made it happen faster. But like many things in life, speed is not always the goal. Anna, howdy. Good to see you from Alabama. It's my free 90. Jenna on fire. Okay, we're in Alabama. I lived in Enterprise and Fort Rucker, family in Trump. It's all Louisiana to me down there. All Nighter Hider, howdy. Buzztune, good to see you. Jared, howdy. First time viewer here. Maybe you're still around. We'll see. I think especially for the people who have certain opinions, when I go in kind of a rant at the beginning of the videos, I can push people away. If you think like there's a question we're going to be coming down here to in a minute where somebody's agent and lender is recommending an LLC. When I get on the LLC bandwagon, there are people who are just convinced you need one, and I piss them off. I've actually had people recently, Mike, say, I can't watch your channel because you call it a pandemic. Good. Block button's right over there. Second, I can't watch your channel because you don't like marriage. I'm like, no. I like marriage is great. It's just not for me. And there's like 5 or 6 reasons why people can't watch, but they watch and they took the time to send the message. So I'm not for everybody. But if you're here, Jared, hopefully this is information that helps you. If this is your first time viewing, Mike and I are both, and no offense, Mike, average guys, right? Working law enforcement. I got laid off.
Proud of that.
In the 2008 housing crash. Was a truck driver after that, became a teacher teaching people how to drive trucks, never super rich. Both of us had poor parents, poor childhoods, reached financial freedom. You passed the $1 million net worth this last year. I don't think you noticed it until you probably went to do a personal financial statement. That's I didn't know it until I did a video. And our goal is to tell other people that the average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. So that's why we're here. Financial firefighter. Aloha, Mark. I believe you were just on Zuber's channel too. I haven't seen it yet. I need to go check it. I think I saw the thumbnail.
I watched the video. It was good.
Got to check it out. Laura, howdy. Oscar and Peter, howdy. I have a rental where I'm going to leave my washer and dryer and fridge for the next tenant. Is this a bad idea? Are we required to fix these appliances? Or do I note that I will only repair stove, microwave, and dishwasher? So the first thing to note, Peter, is what you're required to supply by your state and local laws, right? Some places it's stove, it's dishwasher, whatever the thing is. I provide stove, dishwasher, and that's it. Almost all of my rentals have a refrigerator in them from a previous tenant that I don't maintain or replace. And I have a washer and dryer that I keep in my shed that actually a tenant is using right now that just moved into my property, because I don't provide those either. I don't maintain them. But here's what you say in a conversation. I have a washer and dryer that a previous tenant left behind that you're welcome to use until you acquire your own set. So they don't have the cost of deposit, proration, first month's rent to move in, and washer dryer. They can borrow those, use them, but I'm not maintaining them. And if they don't work, then you just have to go buy one. Be very clear, and that's how I do that. Some people provide washers and dryers and they're okay with it. I'm trying to think if I don't know if you like the term or not, but inherited tenants, purchased a property that had tenants in place where their lease had washers and dryers. So I maintained those because that was an existing lease agreement with the previous landlord. And so those tenants continue to get, if there's ever a problem, a washer and dryer taken care of. But on tenant turnover for that unit, that will change. And Mike, how does that work for you in Gary? Because you're doing short term in Washington now with the other side of your duplex because you're house hacking like I do. And you have out of state investing. How do you handle appliances?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because there's different cultural norms depending on where in the United States you are. My first rental property, and of course, my entire life where I did rent as an adult and I was renting in the Seattle, Washington area between the ages of 18 and 28 as a renter, everywhere always had a dishwasher and a refrigerator and a stove and a microwave. And if there was washer dryer hookups, there was a washer dryer. I lived in some small studio apartments where there was like group laundry at the end of the hall. And so just knowing that that was the cultural norm here in the Seattle area was just what I expected. Then when I went to Indiana to start buying rental properties out there, my property managers are telling me, no, we don't provide any appliances, like any appliances. They bring their own stuff for everything. They bring their own fridge. They bring their own dishwasher. If you have a hookup for it, they bring their own washer and dryer. If they have a hookup for it, all of that stuff is provided by the tenant. Now, for Peter Navarro's question, I have, for instance, the duplex that I just seller financed that I made a couple of videos about recently. I bought that from an owner who left his stainless steel refrigerator and washer and dryer there and dishwasher there. I'm going to leave it all in place, 100%. And as long as it remains active, it'll stay there. But I will, in my lease, put a clause in that says this is left here for your convenience. When it breaks, it will not be repaired. You, at that point, will be required to provide your own fridge, dishwasher, whatever it might be. So, Peter, I believe you were in Lumberjack's self-managing course, so you might be self-managing, in which case you would need to put that in the lease yourself. And then for me, my advice to anybody would be have a good conversation with your property manager about that, and they will set you on the straight and narrow.
Tiffany, howdy. I was an agent for 12 years before I became an investor. There are a lot of monthly costs in maintaining a real estate license, and some might not realize. I suggest 4+ deals a year to make it worthwhile. I love it. That's what I was saying, is it's got to be a lot of deals. The continuing education required is mostly helpful to a full-time realtor. I believe it would be annoying to an investor to have to jump through hoops to maintain a license just to do 1 to 2 deals a year. Good point. I totally agree. I see Jared became a member. Howdy. Thank you for that. As a member, I'll cover this really quick and then we'll get on to the next question. 2 times a month, usually on a Saturday or Sunday, and I usually ask in my Tuesday lives, hey, when would you guys like to do this, Saturday or Sunday? But this weekend pretty much has to be Saturday morning or Sunday evening. Holidays mess everything up. Family. Ugh. Luckily, they don't watch my stuff. But we get together on Zoom, and for the members only, what we do is we look at deals. We literally open up emails from my agents, emails from your guys' agents, and we look at deal. We look at the market. We look at the stream of consciousness thought that an investor would have looking at deals. What factors do you consider? Most people look at math. They go, oh, this is my return. Okay, great. Are there physical aspects of the area that make it a good place to own a rental? Several economic drivers. Safe neighborhood. Then are there physical aspects of the property that help limit tenant turnover or make it attractive for a short-term rental? And for limiting tenant turnover, is there good parking? Is there washer dryer hookups inside the unit because anybody using a shared laundry or laundromat is waiting for a place to open? Like, we go through all of those kind of things. And then those videos stay on YouTube for members so you can watch the ones that you can't make it to. And when we do the members, everybody jumps on Zoom. So it's not this format where we're here answering questions. We're all on Zoom together. Jamil, howdy. What's the largest amount of unexpected expenses you've had in a 3 to 6 month period? So I've done the math, and I have a video on my channel called The Truth About Cash Flow. Right? It was about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I literally broke down, here's the income, here's the expenses, here's what I set aside. And Jamil, hopefully this helps. A lot of people think I make $100 a month on my rental. So, and this is just round numbers. So I have $1,200 a year coming in. If I replace a water heater and it costs $1,200, I lost my whole year. And that's not how it works at all. Expenses don't impact cash flow. It just really feels like they do when you first start. And for 6 months or a year, or like Frank and Cynthia, who earlier this year bought 2 places cash and did some repairs. That's the kind of immediate repairs that make it rent ready. Once you've had a rental for 2 or 3 years, we have a percentage of gross rents, right? I do 5% for vacancy, even though I've never actually had a vacancy. And then I do 10% for repairs and maintenance. So that's 15% total. So 15% of my gross rents coming in get set aside for future expenses. The reason I'm bringing this up is I've not had a year yet where after the first 1 or 2 years of doing this, right? The first 1 or 2 years, I've got videos on that too. I messed everything up. But once I got my systems in place, I've never had a year where even when I've replaced a roof, or like this year, I replaced a septic system, $17,000. Trying to think, plus tip. Yeah, it was under 20 grand. Brand new septic system, all the expenses of this year, and I'm still at about 2/3 of what I'm going to do. So the most I've ever spent in a 6 month period has never been more than $30,000. It's come close. I've had 28,000 one time. And this year with the septic and some other things, it'll probably be in the low 20s total. And at the beginning of this year, I had 3 refrigerators and 3 water heaters go out within 2 months. But that doesn't add up to tens of thousands of dollars. It's just, it took like 15 or 20 techs to handle all of that. And that's the frustration. It's not so much the money. Once you've been investing for a while, and if you have the discipline to consistently set aside that whatever it is, 10, 15, 20, whatever a percentage you settle on that you're setting aside, I look forward to tenants calling me with a problem. Because the tenants have been giving me money to put aside for those repairs, and then the tenants put in the new garage door. They pay for it. I mean, it comes from my money, right? But it's technically theirs coming in from rent. It just took the discipline to not add that money to my cash flow to increase my lifestyle, so that then when an expense happens, I have the slumlord mentality of, oh, that's an expense that's going to cost me, and I'm not doing it. No, that money's sitting there. The septic system went out on one of my properties. Fix it, replace it. I'm ecstatic because I prefer septic over sewer. Replacing that septic system was a fraction. The 17 grand was a fraction of what I would have paid if I had sewer fees every month. And the issues that the septic system had probably would have happened to my sewer pipes anyway. So I'm super happy that happened. The years that I've had that property, the tenants paid me, and part of that 15% being set aside paid for that. So it's a great question. I probably drug it on too long. Mike, biggest expected expenses in a 6-month period. I'll take a guess, and it's probably not what everybody's thinking. Interest rates doubling during 2 burrs.
Yeah, that actually probably would have been the long-term largest expense that I've ever had, because that created a compounding effect where I pay more over the life of the loan I lock in. So that's a really good point, and that wasn't what I was going to go with. But I will say that this is a little bit of an unfair question, because if you are buying turnkey rental properties, so the first few years I was buying rentals, when I was buying everything turnkey or near turnkey, I've had almost no large unexpected expenses. Like my largest one was like maybe $4,000. It was like a $4,500 plumbing thing that happened on one property in my first 3 years. But then when you start buying value add, well, technically largest unexpected expense. Oh, we're doing the value add project, and look at that. There's some foundation problems we weren't aware of. There's an extra 12 grand that I didn't expect. Well, now it's easier to kind of stack a couple of things on there, especially when you do multiple value adds all within a 1-year time frame. So the largest amount in unexpected expenses, if I tacked on together 2 separate properties, 2 problems I didn't expect, yeah, I'm probably at like $25,000. But that's it. Still not that bad.
No, so it's definitely something you want to plan for, right? You want to have reserves, lines of credit, retirement accounts, whatever it is, because Murphy's 4th corollary. So the first rule is, if anything can go wrong, it will. 4th corollary is, if any sequence of events can go wrong, they will, and in the worst possible order. So as your portfolio grows, right? I see Jared saying here he's brand new. He's from the Gator lending and private money lending, hard money lending. Just recently started in Arizona, has 8 units, and is house hacking, I think, in Oregon. As your portfolio grows, so does your reserves. So does your risk mitigation, right? So here's a couple of ways to look at that. When I had 7 units or less, so that was 4 properties, right? 1 single family house, 3 duplexes. I had $10,000 in reserves. And on the 4th property, when I added it, I got an umbrella policy. So my reserves were 10,000 or less because I figured I could handle a roof, a garage door, a water heater, an eviction, right? Not 3 or 4, but one of those at a time. And then when I only had 2 or 3 properties, the umbrella policy didn't make much sense. But once I started having enough properties to want to protect, I got the umbrella policy. Probably should have done it at 3, but I did it at 4. So I mitigated the risk. And then when I had over 7 units, I raised my reserves to 30,000. But I also had a pretty decent job, right? I was teaching people how to drive CDL trucks. When I retired last year, I increased my reserves to 50,000. Right? No longer have the stability and the consistent poison that is a W-2 paycheck that kills your dreams, right? It's the poison, it's the dream killer. 30,000 was plenty. Well, now it's at 50,000. Everything above the 10, 30, or 50, I wanted to put to work to earn more money. But what do you do as your portfolio grows, changes when it comes to planning for things to go wrong? Because they will. It sounds like you've got a great start, Jared. And if you're in the sub 2 and Gator lending, that's Pace Morby. You'll hear us talk about it a lot here. Pace has been on One Rental at a Time's channel. Pace's wife used to be on there every Sunday. They used to do videos together. So this is the One Rental at a Time community kind of. I work with Michael Zuber a lot. We do videos every week. Mike does videos usually every Sunday where they reply to comments. I really like what Pace does, and I think he's one of those hard-charging, motivated people like Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy and those kind of people. That's not who I am. So if you ever hear me say that I don't agree with what they're doing, it's because it's great strategy for other people. I'm the lazy investor. I literally am. My BiggerPockets is financial freedom for the lazy person. All my deals are from the MLS, conventional lending. Accidentally paid off a mortgage one time, and then most recently I'm in the middle of a BRRRR where I bought a property cash. No private money, no hard money lending, and no sub 2, no creative financing for me, right? So when you hear me talk, I'm saying that's not my strategy. That doesn't mean I think it's a bad strategy. Just like if I owned a stock, I'd still have to work. So I don't talk about stocks. Doesn't mean they're not a good investing strategy, right? I mention a channel here on YouTube often, Joe Kuhn, right? He retired at 54. He's been retired 5 years now. Doesn't do real estate. He's all stocks. He's got the bucket method. And I think it's great if you're a stock person. His content is really good. Jared, do any of you do cost segregation easy for your cost segregation? I don't know if you've done it, Mike. So when I had a W-2, I didn't because I wasn't a real estate professional. And I've never paid a penny in rental income tax. Just never had to in a decade. We have a friend, the lumberjack landlord, who has a pretty good W-2 income, and his spouse is a real estate professional. She qualified. So they did cost segregations to offset his income. For me, it hasn't made sense. And it would only make sense if I had enough income to offset that wasn't from real estate, where depreciation and write-offs were already taking care of it. And then the other thing to consider is I am a long-term buy and hold investor. My goal with all of my properties is to never sell. I've never done a 1031. I've never done a cash out refinance or taken out a home equity line of credit. I literally like to buy it, let the debt take care of itself, and be financially free with the right amount of cash flow with the least amount of units. But when you do a cost segregation, it grabs that 5, 10, or 15-year amortized depreciation and takes it all in the first year. And then you only have about 75% of your depreciation for the remainder of that mortgage. That's the aspect I don't like. I like having 100% of the 27.5 divided out over the length of the loan, the 27.5 years every year. I want that. So I haven't. Have you done a cost seg, Mike?
No, I have not.
Jared, there is another benefit. Maybe the real estate professional status could be enough to do it. Just a thought. You don't need a real estate license to be a real estate professional. Right. So it's kind of like when the LLC thing comes up. You don't need an LLC for tax write-offs, and you don't need an LLC for asset protection. You do need it when your lender requires it. If you're using a type of lender that requires an LLC, you do. And if you have partners, you should have an LLC, right? So there's 2 criteria. You must work in real estate more than 751 hours in a year, and you must work in real estate more than you do in a W-2 if you have that W-2 job. That's it. Don't need the real estate license. So it is a benefit. And if you're a realtor, you'll probably hit the 751 hours. I self-managed. It was 16 when I retired. 16 rental units take me about 2 hours a month. So that's 24 hours a year. That's not 751. If I was a real estate investor and agent, maybe my agent might add the time up some. I'm not doing it, but my wife is studying to be a realtor so we can claim that status. This year we did the short-term rental loophole. Mike is looking into that, I think. Maybe for next year, because I don't know if you had enough this year.
We'll see. 3 months. Not 2. Yeah, no, 3 months. We'll see.
Everyone else freeze? Nope. My YouTube is playing along now. Uh-oh, that's not good.
What's wrong?
The YouTube gods don't like us. It seems to be going now, but it looks like it froze for a second.
Looks live to me.
It does look live to me. So, Jared, essentially new, no Gators experience with War Chest, maybe. Nice. REI Stoners, howdy. We talked about you, Josh, a little bit. We're telling everybody to check out your episode when it comes out on one rental at a time. I really
All
think it's
good
cool.
things.
You suggested Zuber go and talk to some of the newer investors. I think that's a great thing. He used to do it. It's kind of how you met him and how I met him, right? We both got
Yeah.
on and said, we're just starting. This is how this
Well,
works.
I don't know if you were just starting. Well,
I just found him and I was like,
that's a fair
actually,
point.
I think how we met was I mentioned his book on BiggerPockets
Right.
and I got his name wrong.
Attaboy.
Yep, I called him Michael Gruber.
Oh, I used to call them 2 rentals at a time.
No, and what was really cool is David Green corrected me. He goes, no, it's Michael Zuber. It's a great book.
Nice,
So,
nice. Yeah,
John,
no, the thesis behind that. So for everybody who knows, the segment that Dion's talking about, that Marco Shiro is on, that REI Stoners is on, is for a long time, Zuber and I would have conversations because I was kind of one of the very first people who he ever talked and mentored as a new investor. Well, but now I got 15 rental units and 5 years of experience and a net worth of over $1 million. And so I was like, Zuber, you need to make sure that you always stay relevant to the people who are getting started today, because the experiences that I had 5 years ago with my first rentals is different than what people are having now. It's different than what Dion did 13 years ago and different than what Zuber and the Lumberjack did 20 plus years ago. So I told him, I was like, what you should do is you should reach out to people who started in the last 3 years and do a series of interviews. So he's been going through and talking to people who are on their first couple of rentals, their first couple of years, and doing videos about how they got started. So it would be more relevant to people in the chat right here who are still trying to get started. My challenge for him will be at the end of every year going forward, in the month of December, he needs to try to interview 5 people who got their first rental and started out for that calendar year, moving forward through time, so that he can make sure he always stays relevant to people starting today. That's one of my biggest complaints about BiggerPockets is you've got guys on there with hundreds of units, sometimes thousands of units and syndications and all of this expertise and wisdom, giving you advice on how to start in 2023 when they started in 2003, and they have no idea what it's like to be a new guy today. And I just think it's unfair. So check those segments out on his channel.
which is why if you're a BiggerPockets fan, you should check out the Real Estate Rookie podcast. I hear they have a great teaching assistant for their boot camps. Just a myth that I've heard.
That was the only true thing you said in that statement.
John. Howdy, John, and congratulations. Hi, Dion. I'm following your channel as a passive participant and closing on my first rental this coming Thursday. I'm getting scared about finding a good tenant. Absolutely. Again, I was talking earlier about your fear shifting. You make an offer. What if they don't take it? Well, then what if they do take it? Well, now you've to the appraisal, the inspection, you're closing, you're bringing money to the closing table. Now you're going to be a landlord. What is that like? How do you screen your tenants? So a couple things that you want to do, John, to help alleviate the fear. Because a lot of investors have the same, I'm going to stop this ad that popped up. I think that's why we locked up last time. A lot of investors start with, what if the tenant trashes my property? Well, plan on them trashing your property. What would you do? You'd have enough reserves to take care of that. You would have a deposit set aside from the tenant to take care of that. So the fear is gone if you think they're going to trash it. You'll feel good if they don't. Then it's, what if I don't find a tenant? And here's the mistake that new investors make that shifts. They think, what if I have a unit that's empty for months and I have to carry the mortgage? That, I think, shifts into the correct, and I call it fear, but mindset. How much might I have to lower the rent to get a tenant in place? Because missing $2,000 a month because you want that $2,000 when you could have went to 18 or 17 and lost 300, but had 1 or 2 more months of money coming in, would be a better offset than waiting. And before you lower rents, you can do things like concessions, half a month free, full month free. Some people do moving truck, whatever your thing is if you're doing storage. But the shift goes to, what if they trash the place, plan on them trashing the place, have deposit, have reserves. How are you going to screen? What matters to you the most? A lot of people do a multiplier of income, credit score, no evictions, criminal history. A lot of places don't let you do criminal history anymore. I've never looked at or cared about income, right? I will do work verification as an opportunity to catch them in a lie. But I look at a credit score and no evictions. Now, the credit score can depend on your area. In Washington around me, 650 is probably good. I go with 700 because I have enough demand on my units. But if you don't get a lot of demand, maybe go for 650, and you can look at credit history too. But I go with no evictions ever. So you're going to screen the tenants that way. You should have things in place because the next fear is going to be, what if there's a plumbing issue? What if they call me at midnight? Plan on it. So you go to Google now today before you close on your property and you look up at least 5 to 10 plumbers in your area that have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week service. You call them and you say, what are your going rates? What's the likelihood of availability? And then you have top 3 best prices and availability and reputation based on reviews that you have it written down on a list. These are the people I would call if I have a plumbing issue. 24-hour a day, 7 days a week. These are the 5 to 10 electricians I'll have that have 7-day service. Doesn't have to be 24 hours a day. They can come out tomorrow to fix it, but they have to work Saturday and Sunday. You have that list pre-built. Get familiar with the Thumbtack app so you can get a hold of contractors and handyman, read reviews and get quotes. Get all of those things out of the way so that when you have the property, you've eliminated as much stress as you can, because if you have those things bothering you and then you compound it with what if the tenants are bad? What if, hopefully you're not in an HOA. What if there's an HOA issue? All of those things, everything that you can take off the plate of something to worry about, the easier it is to handle everything else. John, howdy. Other landlords' testimonials and experience are nothing to write home about.
Did you read the first part of his question?
I missed it.
It's right above it. It says, "Hi, Dion. I've been following your channel as a passive participant."
Oh, that was the same guy. No, it's a different name. Oh, it's the same guy. That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I did. For some reason, I thought it was a different name. I'm sorry. I blame it on the hard water. Dylan, howdy. You did the 21st like. I appreciate that. Jason, I'm going to ask here because I'm using Mike's agent. Him and the lender is telling me I need to have an LLC. I told them it does not protect you, which is true. They insist it does. They just won't hear what I say. Does that lender require an LLC for their loan product? Is it hard money? Is it a DSCR loan? Is it asset-based? Is it commercial? Like, there are some lenders who require an LLC. When I go through the LLC rant, I do always start with, there are times it makes sense. If you have partners, the limited liability company will protect you from someone else's mistakes. If your lender requires it. And Mike recommended the agent that you're using, and he's saying you need an LLC.
Well, that's what I'm like. I don't know if he means me, Mike, or Mike Zuber, Mike, because
Right.
I mean, I talk to a lot of people on Instagram, and I recommend my agent, and my property managers and stuff, and my lenders all the time. But people sometimes have different YouTube names than they do their Instagram names. So, Jason, if my boy Angelo is telling you need an LLC, I don't know why. I bought a property with Angelo this year, didn't use an LLC. So maybe it's a specific type of product or a specific type of loan necessary. Maybe Angelo's a straight up dude. So if that's who you're talking to, I'm sure he's not lying to you. But if this is somebody Zuber recommended, then I can't speak for him.
Yeah. So loan product or partners are the only times I really say that it's recommended.
Wait, hold on. He did say the agent and the lender are telling him he needs an LLC. So it's possible the loan you're assuming or the loan you're applying for may only be available to LLCs, in which case they're probably telling you the truth that both of those parties are saying that.
All Night Hider. There again, Manuel, howdy. Tiffany, congrats, John. I suggest setting your tenant requirements and stick to them. It's worth a little time to wait for the right tenant. Don't be in a hurry. A bad tenant is worse than vacancy. And that reminds me, thank you, Tiffany. When you decide your criteria for your tenant, the next step is to decide how are you going to advertise your unit. So for a long time, I used cozy.co. It was purchased by apartments.com. And then I've used apartments for a while. I now use Hemlane. When you only have one rental, and if you're local and self-managing it close, I don't know that you need Hemlane. For me, I'm using it because I want to be able to use it when I'm out of country. But figure out probably list both on apartments.com and Zillow. They're both free for you. It's an application fee for the tenant, $45 on apartments and $38 on Zillow. In different regions of the US, apartments or Zillow might be used more than the other. And each one is on a few different platforms when you put it on there for free. List on both the first time to see which one gets you the most attention. Right? One will be stronger than the other. And then in the future, you might just go with the one that had the most attention because that's the one that's used in your area. And if you like, I put my email in the chat. Anytime somebody's listing a rental, you can send me, hey, this is the rental that I'm listing. Can you take a look and see what order you put the pictures in might matter, word descriptions, help like that. You can always email me. I'm happy to help. Josh, I like the cash flow of a paid off property.
Don't we
I like the
all?
cash flow of it too, but I don't like the yield. Right? It's not the best use of capital. I paid off a property and it does cash flow more now. I don't regret it, right? But I made a video about a month ago with Michael Zuber and the Lumberjack where paying off that property cost me $1 million. And it isn't like, hey, hypothetically, this is literally I bought a property at about the same time I paid it off. And instead of paying it off, I could have bought another one, and that one has gained me over $1 million. I could have done two. All-nighter hider, I'm walking through home defecto. Does anybody need anything? All-nighter hider, hopefully you have the app. I highly recommend if you go into Lowe's or Home Depot, download their app. You put in what you're looking for. It tells you the aisle and the bay, and if it's in the store, you can look at other stores to see if you need to go anywhere. Because when you walk up to the rep now, the person working at the store, and you ask for something, they usually don't know. They're going to pull up their phone and use the same app that you have now. Definitely recommend it. For me, especially because I'm an introvert and don't want to deal with people, especially. And if you take out Lowe's, Home Depot, McClendon's, which is a hardware store close to us, I haven't been in a store in a decade, maybe 15 years now. So if I go into those stores, I want it to be short and sweet. Keith, howdy. I retired from being a realtor broker for 16 years. The lesson I learned and the units I brought and the legal lessons have paid me well. I have a friend who has 30 rentals, and he's retired. He retired a few years ago at 55 with his rentals. He has 30 rentals. He had 19 agents working for him. And for decades, what he did is he sat in his office because he didn't have kids. He could have inconsistent income. He saved up money and he bought places, cash or seller financing. He would cherry pick the best deals that walked in the door. Got some killer deals. That is a great use of a full-time position working as a realtor over years to develop a real estate portfolio. That is not something that was an option for me. Brock, howdy. What's up, guys? It's been a while since I've been able to catch a live. Hope all is well. It's been almost marvelous. Then my chat moved, which is good. Means there's chat coming. Jared, watch the Big P video where you explained the binder strategy. I also watched the first 3 videos of the binder strategy on your site. Also, genius, and I'm going to use that. Awesome. Let me know how it goes. Lost my place in the chat. Jared, I'm in Oregon, right below you guys. Nice. You're close to Seattle-ish. I'm moved to Port Orchard, so I'm out of Tacoma now, but I think I mentioned something about a meetup with Cody and Christian. I would like to drive up there for that if I'm allowed and get the details. Thanks. So yeah, we got to figure out who to refer people to for Cody and Christian's January 20th event at the Robin Hood Resort. I think if you just go to the website, Robin Hood Resort, or you go to Christian and Cody Multifamily Strategies, that would have the information for that event. Manuel, I have some money, and in my house, I have an extra room with private entry. I'm thinking of expanding it and adding a bathroom with a small kitchen. Or should I buy a rental unit? Expanding the room should be 20 or 25,000. First step, if you're going to do any kind of renovations around your house to make an ADU, a built-out apartment or something, is contact contractors in your area and find out what your municipality or county is like to work with for permits. That's the first step for me. So I live in not to call them out by name, but I live in a town named Port Orchard. So there is a nice lady who's 81 and lives about 3 houses down from me, who's been waiting years for a permit to do her siding. Pluralize, years for that. Then I found out, and I'm probably going to recommend this to her once I'm done in case they change the way the laws work, because cities suck. Always try to buy outside of city limits. You don't need a permit if you're under 1,000 square feet. So I'm doing 800 square feet of siding now, and then the rest next year, keeping both under 1,000 square feet of siding, not needing a permit. But if you're going to do a build out like that, especially if you're going to add a bathroom or a small kitchen, that means you're looking at changing or adding a wet wall, right? Putting in plumbing, which generally requires permits, electricity, any changes to electricity permits. If you're going to change any framing that's visible from the outside, permits. That would be the deal breaker for me. And what are their requirements? I ran a CDL school and we wanted to change the parking at one of our campuses. And the lovely city of Auburn said, absolutely, you can do that, no problem. You need to put in 3 traffic lights. It'll cost you about $400,000 to change our parking lot. Always start with the biggest barrier that could happen when you do something like that. Then if your contractors go, yeah, it's pretty good to work with these guys. Your electricians here in Washington to get those kind of done. Permits for electricity in Washington go through Department of Labor and Industries, and permits are 15 minutes. The inspection is easily scheduled. Like having no problems with that kind of permit, but municipality permits, not so much in 2 of the cities I invest in. The rest seem to be all right. Then you would do a best use of capital analysis. If you do the work, it's 20 to 25. So we'll say 25,000. How much are you going to rent it for? What's your cash on cash return there? And the amount of time it takes to do that project. Is there parking there to support 2 units like that? Are you going to increase your vacancy rate if you don't have a washer dryer hookup in that unit because anybody using a laundromat is going to be like waiting for a place to open? Versus if you bought a rental. Because to me, the benefit isn't always is my cash flow better with one or the other. You start with that, right? What does that look like? But then if you buy another property, you're now starting a second or another depreciation schedule. You're starting appreciation on more than what you put in if you're using a loan. You're getting principal pay down on more properties. You have like several different angles that make adding a rental often better than paying off or buying a property cash or doing a value add to a property that you already have, unless the cash on cash return is just so much better with that build. Could be a 50% cash on cash return if the rent's right in the right area. So not enough information to tell you which one to do, just enough to give you some ideas to things to think about. My favorite name, Booger Fart Boy. House hacking is good. Just don't tell Dave Ramsey. Yeah. I love his video where he says, if you hear house hacking, run away. And I'm thinking, if it wasn't for house hacking, I'd still be working. And just join. Nice manual. After 2 years, it'll pay itself and then be pure cash flow, right? So money's definitely a consideration. My free 90. House hacking is definitely worth it if you can do it. It's helping me a lot in reducing my overall expenditure. Totally agree. Mike is still house hacking, living for free in a duplex in a very high cost of living area. I'm still house hacking. I'm on my 3rd one in over 12 years now. So it's not like I had to move every year like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, did. I think he like house hacked 9 times in the beginning, which is one of the reasons why he has such a massive portfolio. No, Michelle, I think it froze for a few people.
But I agree with Hyder. You are so special to us, Michelle.
We go. Dale, howdy. How long does it take to get a Section 8 tenant in place? 2 different versions of getting a Section 8 tenant in place. The first one is you have a unit that's with the Section 8 program that is approved with Section 8. It can be overnight. You advertise the rental. I diversify my portfolio in 2 different ways. One of those ways is I keep about 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, and 1/3 working or retired, right? So I have different aspects of society paying my rents so that a pandemic, eviction moratorium, stock market crash isn't going to decimate my entire rental income. So with those Section 8 tenants, if one moves out, I'll call the housing authority and say, here's the link to my unit that's coming available on Tuesday. Can you share this with anybody you know that's waiting for a place to open? More than likely going to get a Section 8 tenant in there. It's really quick. That's the first version. Second version is if you have a unit that doesn't have Section 8 approval, this can take, depending on the county that you're in, somewhere between 2 weeks and a couple of months. So I invest in 2 counties. Now I'm in 3, but there's 2 that I was in for a while. One, Section 8, the Housing Authority in Pierce County, Washington, not to name them by name, but Pierce, spell it right, County, Washington, sucks so bad I won't do Section 8 there. So it's the agents that make it bad. Thurston County, Washington, I have a great reputation with them, or great relationship with them. They're quick, they're flexible. They go by the book, they go by the laws, which protects me and the tenant, but at least they're responsive. They have to come and inspect your unit. And I've had some people say, well, I don't want to do Section 8 because someone's going to inspect my unit. Well, they're going to inspect it for things that you want to inspect for anyways. Doors and windows work, water heaters strapped. There's bedrooms actually qualify as a bedroom with 2 ways in and out, has a closet, all your lights work. They're going to check for everything that you as a landlord should be fixing anyway. If they find any deficiencies, they're going to say, okay, they scheduled the first inspection. That could have been a couple of weeks, right? That's why it could take a couple of weeks. If there's no deficiencies, they can improve it right then. If there are deficiencies, this is a way to save time. The person that's doing the inspection will say, okay, here's the 1, 2 to 10 things you need to fix. We'll schedule another inspection. Ask the inspector, based on what you need to fix, is it possible for me to have it fixed and then take a video and email it to you, proving that it's fixed, so you can give approval without having to come and do another inspection? They've said yes to that. So you can skip a step there. Once it's approved, then you can advertise. And learning Section 8 is a little bit tricky if you haven't had one yet, because it's not like I've got a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom and it's worth X dollars. Each tenant has a voucher based on their specific situation, their income, number of people in their family, how much Section 8 will pay for them. It's a review that all happens very quick, but it doesn't mean that you can just say what the rents are. You have to watch a couple of the videos on setting Section 8 rent tenants rent. There's actually a part of the binder strategy on how to get the housing authority to raise their rents. So hopefully that answers your question. Mike, you have 14 units now, 13 units. Most of them are Section 8 in Gary, Indiana. How long does it take to place a tenant?
Depends on the time of the year a little bit, but ultimately, usually we're looking for 6, 7 weeks, maybe something like that. We get a ton of applications immediately, very quickly. The difficult thing is making sure that we find the applicant that's qualified with the qualifications that my property manager wants. So if I was just to take any old Section 8 tenant, I could get it filled in a couple of days, but I don't. We're very strict, and we're typically looking for kind of more top tier Section 8 tenants, both in obviously credit and income, but by the fact that these are 3-bed, 1-bath apartments, which means that there's a lot of like single moms, and single moms typically don't have really great credit, or they don't even have income. And so when you're looking for at least the single moms on the Section 8 program out there, when you're looking for the higher quality Section 8 tenants, it could take a little bit longer. So yeah, 6, 7 weeks is usually what I'm finding. But again, you drop the rent down, it could be tomorrow. If I didn't go for $1,200 a month and instead went for $1,000 a month, well, then everybody will apply, and I'd get my qualified tenant like that.
Good way to look at it. Josh asks, Mike, what part of Florida are you looking at?
I mean, I've traveled to Florida a handful of times, gone on there on vacation a couple of times. And I mean, I like the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area personally. I think it's going to be one of the major cities moving forward. I think New York and LA are pretty much done. Chicago's pretty much done. I think we're going to be looking at Miami. I don't actually, what else is even, maybe there's a city in Texas that might be good, but Miami is like the place you want to be in the United States. It's where a lot of businesses are moving. Look at PBD, you look at Grant Cardone, you look at some of these other large businesses moving to Florida. That's where I want to be. And I just love the ocean. I grew up in North Dakota, which is landlocked, completely landlocked. And then I moved to Washington and I saw the ocean for the first time and I just fell in love. And then I stepped in it and it was 40 degrees. And I was like, this is trash. Then I went to Florida on vacation. I was like, now this is what I've seen in the movies. That's pretty cool. I want to come back here some more.
I feel the same way when I go scuba diving. In Washington, it's dry suit and freezing. And then I travel to Thailand and it's like you can't tell when you're getting in and out of the water.
Right.
The temperature's so good.
Nice.
Jared, I am setting aside 18% on my first property in Arizona because the AC unit is 12 years old. I have funds to cover, but hoping it lasts for a year or 2 more. Nice. So I would have a minimum that I set aside. One of the things I think some people do as a mistake is they say, I'm buying a new place so that I don't have to set aside. That's not how it works. We start setting aside when we own the rental because even if it's brand new, 30 years from now, it's going to need a roof, right? Things can break tomorrow, even if they're new. So don't decrease it too much if you have a newer property. Brian, howdy, gents. Question, how do you find wholesalers from out of state? Mike?
Cake. It's easy. These are the questions that we need to be asking, fellas. I'm proud of you for going out of state. Who asked this question? Who Brian Anderson?
Brian Anderson.
Yep. Brian Anderson. Yep. Brian Anderson, you are a man among men. Let me tell you what, considering out-of-state investing. This is a fantastic question because you need to be working with wholesalers more. How do you find them? I hate to give away the freaking game, but I'm going to give you guys some secret sauce. So take some freaking notes, okay? This is the money maker right here. First, go on Craigslist and type in houses for sale in the area you're looking for. The only people bold enough to list their houses for sale on Craigslist are the actual homeowner or wholesalers. Because guess what? Neither one of those people has a real estate license, so they can't list on the MLS, and they sure as hell ain't going to work with a real estate agent and give up some portion of their the sale to that agent. So Craigslist, another great one, Facebook Marketplace, and another great one, Facebook Groups. Okay, because Facebook Marketplace is the place you can actually list things for sale, but Facebook Groups, investor groups, like there's the Indiana Real Estate Investor Group, there's the Indianapolis Real Estate Investor Group, and if I was not such a lazy deadbeat bum, I would have a long time ago made the Northwest Indiana Facebook Group, which I will make at some point. I have just been sitting on my hands. The point is, the types of people that are in these Facebook groups talking about properties are almost exclusively for sale by owners and wholesalers. Next thing you can do is make sure that you're just talking to everybody, your contractors, the people that are actually working on your properties at a distance. I don't know if Brian, if you got any properties out there yet, but these guys drive around and they see the signs that say, we'll buy houses fast for cash, or we buy ugly houses. I always tell people, if you're there, write those numbers down, because those are wholesalers who are trying to buy your house fast for cash. Call them and say, I ain't got no houses for sale, but I want to be put on your cash buyer list, because that's what they're also looking for on the back end. You can ask your contractors, hey, you seen any of those signs around town? Oh, yeah, I've seen some of those. Hey, will you write the number down? Next time you drive past one, I want to call one of those guys. Just get a couple of numbers that way. And then from there, I highly recommend everybody make an Instagram and a YouTube account. Not because I want you to become very successful and a very popular, well-established influencer like Dion. It's probably not going to happen, all right? You're not making a YouTube page or an Instagram account because you're going to become famous online. You're doing it so that you can exclusively make videos about the name of the city you invest in or the county. Gary, Indiana, or Lake County, Indiana. I own every search term. I own all of the Google results. I own all of the YouTube results. You type anything about Gary, Indiana real estate into YouTube and you see multiple videos from me. What does that do for me? I get inundated with wholesalers constantly messaging me on Facebook and Instagram. I got a deal. Do you want to look at it? I got a deal. Do you want to look at it? Because they're trying to offload their property. They're frantic to find a cash buyer. And if they see that you are that person, dude, I've been said no to 8 properties in a row from a wholesaler. And then a year and a half later, he finally brings me the one that actually works. Like, there's so many ways to do it. If you just think outside the box, make the freaking YouTube page. I don't care if you don't think you're good at videos. Put pictures up of the properties you're doing and narrate over the top of it if you don't want to be on camera. Stop making excuses. All right.
No, that was some great advice. That's why I knew that was a great question for you, because that's your thing. Couple of things here a bit further down. I'm not going to skip the questions from here, but Laura, who lives in Florida, I actually met with Laura. We had lunch, I want to say, 2 years ago now? It's been a while. House hacking in Florida. Fort Lauderdale, better than Miami. Michelle agrees. So something to think about when you go down there, Mike.
Oh, I'm going to meet up with Lauren Samaniego 100%. Absolutely. Anytime I take a trip anywhere, I always let people know I'm coming. And then I say, free real estate meetup, let's go have pizza together. And if it's just a one-on-one free real estate date night, lucky you.
Buddies asked the question, because I allude to this, but I don't go into detail unless somebody asks. And so please share your asset protection strategy, because I'm the anti-LLC guy, because My fear isn't that somebody that has 10 properties goes out and puts each one in an LLC and throws away some cash flow, learns some paperwork, spends money every year, increases their income for their CPA. I don't care about that. I'm worried about the person that doesn't even own a property yet, not even one rental. And they think, I need to get an LLC. What do I name it? How do I pay myself? What do you mean I can't get lending on a house hack because it's in an LLC? And all the barriers you put in place on something you don't need yet. If you're established and you want peace of mind for some illusionary thing that doesn't exist, asset protection from having an LLC, go for it. But the brand new person, don't stop yourself in your tracks by doing something that's just going to put barriers in your way. 3 forms of asset protection. First one, this is not in order of importance. The last one is the most important. First one is insurance. Homeowners insurance on every property, at least $300,000 of injury or slip fall coverage, full replacement value on the property. Don't just do mortgage coverage because your lender is going to require that they are made whole. That's the requirement when you have a mortgage. You want to make sure your coverage covers the full replacement cost if that thing burns to the ground. That's a different policy. To keep prices down, I usually go with a really high deductible, 5,000 or 10,000. I think I just moved most of them to 10,000 on my last renewal because I don't ever want to use an insurance unless it's a really big claim. So it keeps the premium down and it makes me less likely to use insurance because when you have a claim, your rates can triple and no one else can insure you for up to 5 years. So you only want to use that when it's a real problem. Once you have a certain number of properties, it could be 2, 3, 4, whatever, and you have a few of them, that's when I recommend having an umbrella policy. So if any lawsuit goes over the threshold of what your policy on that property covers, then the umbrella policy kicks in. That's the first form of asset protection. Second one is I actually don't want paid off properties or to buy in cash. Like this one I have. I don't really want that. I'm going to pull the money out and probably put it to work. I don't want more units, but it's probably the best use of capital. Lending. Having the banks in first position is a form of asset protection. And the third, the most important form of asset protection, the one that you actually have more control of, is be proactive. Do walkthroughs, educate your handyman and contractors on things you need updated on. Cleanliness of a unit when they come in, I don't care if there's a mess. I care if there's food on the counter, soda cans laying everywhere, something that can cause a rodent infestation. I want if there's a place that has a deck or stairs, they use the banister and they test its strength. They don't even have to tell the tenant they're doing that. They're looking for things that can cause a safety issue, looking for carpet coming up on stairs or anything like that. Be proactive and fix those things. When a tenant reaches out and says, here's the issue, if it's this window has failed and I see fog inside of it, yeah, that's something you'll fix eventually. The next time you probably have a reason to be out there or have a contractor or handyman there. But if it's the deck is wobbly when I walk on it, someone is out there tomorrow working on that. And you're probably putting cones out today. Yeah, I know it's pretty cool. I don't know why it does that. It does this thumbs up thing. It does this. I don't know. It's got a Zoom is amazing.
You look great.
So, buddies, I hope that helps. That's my 3 forms of asset protection, and it is not an LLC because in 1996, the IRS determined that all sole proprietor, single member, and married people in an LLC is a disregarded entity. And the 3 counties that I invest in, it was just 2 for a while, but now I'm in 3. They use that precedence to disregard all single member LLCs. They don't pierce the veil. That's possible too. You commingle finances or not structure it correctly. A judge can pierce the veil. But they can disregard that LLC too, meaning no asset protection. When you are sued, your assets are at risk and every one of your LLCs is your asset. Marina, howdy. Good to hear from you. Happy Tuesday, working at your dream killer while listening in the background. That's exactly what a W-2 is. I see that meme on Facebook. Who has a dream job? Why would you dream about having a job? Have financial freedom so you can do whatever you want with your time, whether you get paid for it or not. I think I cut you off, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it was actually a very popular video series that was going around that was like, I do not dream of labor. I do not dream of work. And it was just an unending supply of 24-year-old women making videos about how hustle culture was toxic for society. So, yeah, that's one opinion out there.
So, Jared, you make a really good point here. I really think that people like me that are starting now when things are tough is a blessing. I can honestly say if I started when things were not, I would have over levered and probably be broke. So I've lived a half a century, over 50 years. I've never, not once in 50 years, ever heard somebody say to all investors, no matter your asset class or your strategy, now is the best time to invest, unless they were selling something. It's always a bad time. So here's a quick breakdown of just the last decade. In 2008, we started the crash. In 2011, we hit the bottom, but everybody in 2011 was saying double dip recession, don't buy, it's going to crash further. 2013, everyone was saying don't buy, home prices just went above where they were in 2008, and they mistakenly said price caused the crash, because price didn't cause the crash. Adjustable rate debt, ninja loans, people borrowing more than they should, right? Toxic debt caused the crash, not home values. So from 2013 to today, like that's still going on. Everyone is saying it's unsustainable, it's unaffordable. Unaffordability index is broken because nobody's considering remote work when they use that metric. 2015, and we're seeing a repeat of this now for some reason, which I haven't figured out. In 2015, somebody did the math and said, baby boomers are going to start retiring. There's going to be a silver tsunami, which you're hearing now again in the news. Never happened. And if it did happen, that's a 1-for-1. They sell their properties to downsize and buy one. So there's no flood of inventory because it's a 1-for-1 sale and purchase. It isn't happening now because they have the rate locked, right? They either have a paid off house or a house that they purchased or refinanced in 2020 to a 3% interest rate. Even buying a smaller house now would have a 7 or 8% interest rate. It isn't going to save them anything. Then 2018, interest rates went above 6%. And everybody knows that when interest rates are above 6%, nobody can buy real estate. And I picked up duplexes when it was over 6%. 2020, we have a pandemic, eviction moratorium, forbearance, 30% stock market crash, all of the reasons why nobody can successfully buy real estate. And starting in 2021, 2020 really, the crash bros came out of the woodwork. Think of every channel that's out there that makes every 2 days, they make a new, because they're making a ton of money, they make a new video with a new reason. Right now it's shadow inventory. Every 2 days for 3 years, these channels make a new reason why there's a crash. Forbearance is going to end. I made a video a week or two ago on how my friend lost $100,000 and I made $100,000 because Peter Schiff said when forbearance ends, there's going to be a bunch of foreclosures, and less than 1% of the people who went into forbearance started foreclosures. And it takes about 4 years, over 1,000 days, to go through a foreclosure. Then interest rates went up, so that has to cause a crash, which it hasn't. Over and over and over, my entire life, not just this 10-year breakdown that I just gave you, everyone has always said this is the worst time in all of history to ever buy a property, ever. And if you're buying because you want to be doubling or tripling your money in 6 months, it is the worst time to buy, and it always has been. But if you're buying with the plan of, again, having all of my properties perform better than all of my marriages, actually until death do us part, it's always a great time to buy. So any channel or any content creator or any investor who is saying you need to wait to buy because interest rates, prices, rents, recession, anything, block them. And anybody, any content creator, any investor, anybody that you know that is saying you better hurry to buy, block them. There are 2 things that tell you when to buy real estate. Let me know if you want to know what those 2 things are. Most of
Dion,
them have been here. Yes, sir.
I got to take off because a couple of reasons. Number one, you said pandemic, and as a snowflake millennial, I can't take alternative opinions to myself, so I need to leave. I'm sure you can appreciate that. Number two, the real reason I'm going to be a good father and take my son to jujitsu, because not only am I a fantastic investor, I'm also the second best father on this live stream. So I will just have to chat with you later.
All right, man. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys, and hold Dion's feet to the fire. Make sure that he tells you when we're going to Denny's in Vegas.
Did you get those? He's out of here. Good. Yes, Denny's in Vegas. If you're going to the one rental at a time meetup in Vegas, February 17th and 18th, Mike and I believe Lumberjack Landlord are going to be getting there a bit early, like Monday. And we're going to be hanging out there, and we're going to be doing some midnight Denny's meetups. Different Denny's, same midnights. Wayne Wong. Thanks, Zuber, for introducing me to Dion and Mike. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And of course, my chat moved, and we've got about 15 minutes left. I have to get ready for the course video tonight. So if you're in my Financial Freedom for the Lazy Investor course through the entire month of December, I need to check and make sure it's there, and not just done for 1 week. Every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, we are doing a Zoom for course portfolio deep dives. And now, of course, because he's gone, I see a question from Millennial Mike. Do you rely on your property manager for repairs or have your own contractor? I've seen that he's done both. Brian, if you really want a good answer to that, Mike's on Instagram. It's Millennial Mike. Look through it. One of them, I think it's Millennial with one N on Instagram. He answers most of his stuff there. I am not an Instagram person. I only have posts on Instagram because somehow it's linked to Facebook. Brandon, howdy. Looking forward to meeting you both in Vegas. Yes, that is going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you there. Landlord Odyssey, howdy. One benefit of being an agent is that sometimes when the agent isn't available, you can still go on the property yourself. Or if the property is vacant and there's a lockbox, you can get in right away. Is that a benefit? If you're an investor like me, and I will say this with full transparency, remember, the less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. I have never seen a property before making an offer. Not once. Once under contract, I did drive to this property to make sure it was a duplex because the listing wasn't very clear, because some agents are awesome and made me a bunch of money because they didn't know how to do their job. But yeah, I've never been to a property, gone in. Now, I have gone with my brother when he was looking at doing some auction purchases. And statute of limitations, how many years? Seen the inside of some properties without an agent. An agent wouldn't have got us in there either. And then Fast Cholo, howdy, took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was talked about. Where do you recommend getting a lease agreement template from? I'm in Texas. If you're a BiggerPockets Pro member, they have a lease made for every state by a lawyer. Some states, don't know about Texas. Washington had it for a while, but it's gone now. They have a landlord-tenant resource page. So a real estate association in your area might have that as well. That's where me and Mike both got our leases, and then we've made adjustments to it since then. One of the things I recommend, Fast Cholo, no matter where you get your lease and how good you think it is, when you do find a good resource for it, I think Zillow and apartments.com even have access, some leases that you might adjust, add things like no water beds, no trampolines, right? Whatever your specific verbiage is for your property. Find an eviction attorney in your area that works in the courts for the area that you invest. Take a note. This is something you want to write down. Go to that eviction attorney and say, first, what I do is I retained one, $1,500 to an attorney like 7 years ago. Haven't gone through an eviction yet. Tenant screening is important, and relationships with tenants is important. I have threatened evictions by 15 times by being polite and nice to my tenants. I'll explain that too. Take your lease to your eviction, to your attorney that you can either retain or give a couple $100 to look at your lease, and say this sentence. I own some rentals in this area, and if I ever go through an eviction, you're probably the attorney I'm going to use. Is there any verbiage that you can add to my lease to make your job easier if we ever go through an eviction together in this court system? The attorney you're talking to works in the specific system, the court, where your eviction is going to end up. And each court system has a different judges, different things that matter, and they have the experience of seeing what worked and what didn't work, and what offended judges and what tripwires you can remove out of your own way. To have your lease strong for your specific county, have your lawyer add that to your lease, whatever it is. What did they add to mine? Mine was because I accept rents through Venmo, Apple Pay, Cash App, Zelle, like all these different ways where people can make a partial payment. There's an addendum in my lease of if rent is ever not ever paid in full, any partial payments that are paid are going to a holding account that is not received. So it doesn't delay or start an eviction process longer when a tenant makes a partial payment. Worded much better than what I just spit out of my mouth, right? It was in legalese. but that was something that they added. Jason said it was Angelo who recommended the LLC, so maybe this lender is doing something like that. Find out if it's the loan requirement. Jason, pierce the veil. They say, no, that's not possible. I just have heard different, don't want to argue with them. Right. Piercing the veil is very easy, not very hard to do. Flat out disregarding them is not that hard either. Thank you, Michelle, for putting the link to the, I think that's the multifamily strategies event in January. Awesome. Tiffany, there's a house that interests me to live in, but it's in between two areas of housing authority projects. One was just scraped and building new townhomes. The other is old duplexes. How safe is the area? And it's not always just if you're looking at a house hack, you're going to live there, but how safe do you feel sending a handyman or a property manager there to collect rents, right? We're always looking at properties that way too. Sometimes the best return you can get is to buy it in a place nobody would go. But then you're going to have so much tenant turnover and vandalism and crime that you're not going to be able to keep a tenant. There's actually a program, I don't know if it's still going on, but it was in a place like Gary, Indiana, where if you were a contractor, if you bought a house, you got a house for free. That's how bad the areas were. They were trying to give contractors the ability to upgrade and fix two houses to bring them up. Doesn't mean that's going to be the area that I want to invest in. So while Mike does invest in Gary, Indiana, one of the best strategies he uses is you don't look at the Zillow listing or the MLS, or you found it through whatever aspect of, platform you found it on. You don't just look at the pictures of the building. You have somebody you trust, your property manager or the agent that you're working with. If you're investing out of state, go to that street, take a camera and record all the way up and down the street. Because one of the things that is a reality in Gary is on a street with 10 homes, there could be a street that has 8 good homes and then 2 that are bad. And you're buying one that you're going to fix up. So it'll be the 9th good home on that street. And across the way, there could be another place with 10 homes. 8 of them are vacant and boarded up, and there are 2 with people living in it. You don't want to buy the 3rd, right? You want to be in the better street. So you want to see what else is out there. So if you're looking at this, one's been scraped and redone. New buildings raise rents. A new investor often looks at builds and goes, oh, there's so many new things available. That's going to lower rents because supply and demand, right? You have more supply to meet the demand. It's not how it works. The investors that do the lending that it takes to do a build, and then the buyers that buy from that builder have such an amount of debt that their rents have to be a certain amount, which generally every time new builds have happened around my rentals, my rents go up 20+% within a year. So that new build might make me reconsider. It depends on how bad those duplexes are. No Mondays, always Saturday. Howdy. Found a property. How long does it take to get a pre-qual? Any ways to make it go fast? Yes, because you should have a pre-qual before you're looking for properties. So you go to a lender, they look at your work history, right? You're in the Air Force, right? How long have you been in the Air Force? What is your work history consistency? What is your salary? If you're working overtime, like if you're at a job where you get overtime, is it consistent for a couple of years? If you're getting combat pay or deployment pay, has it been consistent for a couple of years? To figure out what you're qualified for in advance. That's all based on you, because if you're doing 4 units or less, the appraisal has to show that the property is worth what the lender's going to loan, right? So no matter what you qualify for, there's going to be that appraisal qualification for the lender. You are the qualifier for what are called Fannie and Freddie backed loans, not non-QM, not qualified mortgages like DSCR, asset-based or commercial. But these ones that you're using Fannie and Freddie for, conventional, VA, FHA, how much do you make? What's your debt to income ratio? Like all of that, the lender knows that before you've even found the property. And when you are new and you don't have rentals, your debt to income ratio really matters. You have been house hacking, I think, duplex now coming at not quite hitting 2 years yet, but once you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, your debt to income ratio basically goes away and means nothing. The lenders will say you can buy anything that you have the down payment for and reserves for, It's not your debt to income ratio, because they're going to take 75% of the rental income on the properties that you have and the property that you're investing in into your debt to income ratio, which basically, as long as you're buying cash flowing deals, will take away the upper limit of what you can buy. Some lenders also have the caveat of saying we want at least 3 months remaining on your leases, or the majority of your leases. So month to month isn't as attractive to them as longer leases are. A lot to consider there. No Mondays, always Saturdays. If you have a good lender, great. If not, reach out to me and I will connect you with a couple that service your area and connect you with them. But you should have the pre-qual while you're looking for properties. And then make sure the lender knows that if you are kind of like I was for the last decade, it's not the way I am now. Now I'm watching days on market, but for the last decade, I was watching speed. I wanted an offer in as quick as possible. Let your lender know that when you find a property, that they have a couple of hours to get you a letter of it's not pre-qualification, it's pre-approval. Because let's say you can borrow $500,000. You don't want the lender to send you a letter saying you can borrow $500,000 if you're buying a $350,000 duplex. What you want is if you can borrow $500,000 and you find a $350,000 duplex within 2 hours or shorter, your lender sends you a letter of pre-qualification for exactly $350,000 that you submit with your letter, your offer. You don't want the listing agent or the seller to think, oh, they can borrow more, we should negotiate the price up, or be less likely to negotiate the price down. You want your letter of pre-approval to be for the amount of your offer. Sean, house hacking my first fourplex as of 4 months ago, and my goal is to move to South Florida to house hack my next one in the next 2 years. I look forward to you being my realtor, Mike. Awesome. Don't know that he'll be there within 2 years. He's really close. But we'll see. Tiffany, I like the renovated house and the price is pretty reasonable, but I'm unsure of the area. What are your thoughts about buying to live near the housing authority properties? Pros and cons. I don't have a problem living next to housing authority properties. I would have a problem living next to tenement housing, where the cops have to go in squads of 4. I would have a problem living next to low income housing. There's a huge difference between low income and Section 8. Section 8 is fixed income. It depends on the area and the neighborhood. Go there and look at how the yards are taken care of. What do their vehicles look like? How you do anything is how you do everything. And tenants that take care of the place, whatever the funding source is for their pay, I'd be fine with. Generally, my experience, having worked in law enforcement for 8 years, was low income areas brought in low income aspects. Fixed income, generally not so much. Janitor on fire. The beaches in Miami suck. Daytona has the best beaches I've ever been to. It's like talcum powder. Go to Thailand. Let's meet in Thailand. See if there's any other questions here. When tenants invest your wealth, howdy, haven't seen the name in a minute. When tenants paid cash for rent, do you have to deposit the cash or okay to sign off they've paid, as long as you give them a receipt and report the income? A good IRS agent will just contact your tenants and say, how did you pay? And they'll see the receipts. During a real deep dive investigation, you want to have all your ducks in a row. One of the things that makes us able to continue to add properties is that we report our income. And because of write-offs and depreciation, even though I had $204,000 in profit in 2022, I still didn't pay a penny in rental income tax. I carried forward a loss on paper. You want to report the income, so you're bankable. And while prison is the ultimate house hack, it's not my chosen form of retirement. Laura, Dion, 2 years ago, May 21st, 2021, was a life changer. I am so grateful you took the time to meet with me. Millennial Mike, I am looking forward to our meeting. I can be your boots on the ground. Look west on. Awesome. Michelle, let me know next time you come down to Florida. I would love to meet. Awesome. Cool. See if there's any other questions here, and we'll probably be wrapping up for this week. Every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, if you're one of the new viewers from tonight. This Saturday, probably a members-only live stream. I think 10 a.m. Pacific, maybe 9. I have to schedule 9 or 10 a.m. Pacific. Members only is when we get on Zoom and we primarily look at deals. Manuel, I live in Vegas, so let me know. I'll be ready anytime. It will be midnight at Denny's. REI Stoners, what nights are these meetups, Mike? I'll be arriving around 10:30 Friday. I don't know if we're doing one Friday night because we have the event Saturday and Sunday. I think the meetups, Josh, are going to be like Tuesday, Thursday, I think. It'll be Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see. So thank you all very much for hanging out with me on a Tuesday live stream. I will be doing a short live on Thursday where I talk about, I haven't decided yet. Let me know in the comments which one you'd rather see. It's okay to be lazy, and then defining what that means. Or you are an investor for years before you buy a rental property, and then actually break down what that means. It's okay to be lazy, or you are an investor for years before you buy a rental property. I hope this has been helpful. My goal is to help you, the average individual, realize that you can reach financial freedom and make work completely optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. And if you're interested in the course, I will see you in the course here in 18 minutes, unless you're in Futureland. I don't know what to say. If you're in the course, remember there's $100 off right now, and every Tuesday night through the entire month of December, we're doing live Zooms for portfolio deep dives. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.